Here's the story of how I made my way from Coventry in England's West Midlands down to the sunny shores of the Mediterranean by train. I left my local station, Tile Hill, at around 9:30 on a Wednesday morning, with the change onto the fast train at Coventry, which would take me down to London's Euston Station. I did this journey with the help of an Interrail Pass, a rail pass open to residents of Europe that allows unlimited travel across Europe, or a single country, by train for a set number of days. The one I purchased gave me 5 days within the course of a month. My first travel day would take me down to Dijon, an historic city in France's Burgundy region. I would need to travel from London to Paris on a Eurostar via the Channel Tunnel, then cross Paris by metro, before taking an intercity train from Paris to Dijon, where I would stop for the night. My train arrived pretty much on time at Euston, leaving me plenty of time to walk the 15 minutes or so to St Pancras International Station. St Pancras itself is stunning inside and out and marks the perfect place to embark on an international rail adventure. Much of the journey out of London is in tunnel, so don't expect to see anything scenic, but once you've gone under the Thames and out into Kent, the train is at speed, and very soon you're flying past comparatively slow traffic and heading towards the Channel Tunnel. Speaking of the Channel Tunnel, if you've never been through it before, no, you can't see anything at all from the windows. No fish, no ships. But it's over very quickly and suddenly you're in France. The whole journey really is very quick considering you're going from the heart of one capital city to another. My journey was 2 hours 17 minutes. Soon the undulating fields of northern France fall away, replaced by sprawling Parisian suburbs. And then suddenly the terminus, the Gare du Nord. Now at this point, you can go to the Gare de Lyon and take the TGV to Dijon in about an hour and a half. I was in no hurry and took the intercity train from Paris-Bercy, which takes 3 hours and doesn't attract a reservation fee for Interrail. I got into Dijon at about 8:30 and that's where I stayed for the night. I don't sleep well in hotels, at least not the first night I'm away, so an early start gave me a decent amount of time to explore the city centre before it got busy. There's a lot to like in Dijon, including the impressive Palace of the Dukes of Burgundy, the Opera House, and a selection of interesting churches and other stately buildings, along with classic French squares that lend themselves to traditional café culture. A signature of Burgundian architecture is the abundance of buildings with patterned tile roofs, which I personally love and of which I took far too many pictures. Just before lunchtime, I stocked up on provisions. French trains aren't great on catering, and hopped on a regional train to Lyon. From there I would be getting another regional train to my night stop in Avignon, but there will be time for a little wander around Lyon in the meantime. Oh, and these French Corail trains are a vibe and the most comfortable. Catch them before they all go, though they do need to go, as they are definitely not accessible. Oh, Lyon. I better come back properly sometime. France's second city is a stunner, and by all accounts also the gastronomic capital of the country. Shame I wasn't there for lunch. I had time to see a couple of sights between trains, but there's so much more to this city. On the confluence of the Rhône and Saône rivers, you definitely notice you're further south now. I was chilly in Dijon that morning, but the coat had to come off in the afternoon. I took the funicular up to the Fourvière area above the city. One of two remaining funiculars, the little cable car is very cute, but it's still very much part of the city's impressive transit system. The view from the terrace beside the basilica gives an idea of the scale of the city, the old town giving way to considerable suburbs, but also a modern business district around the Pas Dieu station, which is where I arrived earlier. Down here is the Cathedral of Saint-Jean-Baptiste, and up on the hill is the Basilica of Notre-Dame de Fourvière. Just down the hill are the Roman remains, including this impressive theatre. Then it was time to go down the other funicular and back into Old Lyon. Back at Lyon Pas Dieu station, it was 17:20 and time to make my way down to Avignon on this TER regional service, which would arrive in Avignon just in time for a late dinner. I didn't have time to do any exploring after what was a little bit of a disappointing meal, but started early the next day. It was worth it as the streets were calm and it was a beautiful morning, though cold and a little breezy. I went down to the river to see the famous bridge, or what's left of it. Alas, due to predicted high winds, the bridge was closed, so if you were hoping for some dancing, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But the setting is amazing. In one direction, the old city, and in the other direction, you have Mont Ventoux, famous for its punishing cycle hill climb, all framed by glorious autumn colours. Within the city walls, Avignon Centre itself is very pretty and a nice little place for a stroll. The town hall, Hôtel de Ville, is a handsome building. The squares and side streets have plenty of character, and there's a particularly ornate facade to this theatre. What you might not know is that Avignon played home to the papacy from 1309 to 1376, when the city was part of the Kingdom of Arles, rather than France, and this is the Palace of the Popes, the Palais des Papes. It was once again time to be moving on, this time towards the coast. From Avignon, I would be taking my only TGV of the trip, down to Nice. TGVs come as a supplement to the Interrail Pass, and often aren't quite as scenic, but in this instance the timings were just better. They don't go from Avignon Centre station, so you have to take a train shuttle across to the TGV station out of town. The double-deck TGV Inouï service is a huge train, but such is the popularity of France's high-speed network that it was pretty full. It takes you down to the coast on high-speed rails, and then switches to conventional lines east of Marseille. The landscape of Provence is very distinctive, but as the journey goes on, it transitions to coastal vistas. The train chasing the sun around the Côte d'Azur towards Cannes, Antibes, and finally Nice. I couldn't have wished for better weather or a more lovely evening for it. And there we go. I'd made it to Nice. From Coventry to the Mediterranean, the lights of the Riviera twinkled as the jet set flew in and out. It's quite a seafront, one of my favourites, and even in late November there was a bustle to the Promenade des Anglais. I went down into the old town in search of food. I found a lovely pizza. I didn't video this, so you would just have to imagine how nice it was. In classic style, I woke up way earlier than I needed to, before sunrise, so I started the day with a trip along the coast to Aise-sur-Mer, the seaside neighbour of the more famous village up the hill. I took myself some way up Nietzsche's path to watch the sunrise. It was a glorious morning, and had I had more time I might have gone the whole way up to the top. But even a little way up the hill yielded an extraordinary and apparently uncommon sight. Corsica, far away across the sea, and only visible when conditions are perfect. I just stood and took it all in. The sea, the sunrise and the horizon. Nobody else was about. I made my way back down the hill and crossed the railway. Not every train stops at Aise, and I'd maybe been a bit optimistic about the timetables, but it gave me time to walk down from the platform to the beach and sit down on the shingle for a while, listening to the waves. But time passed quickly, and my next journey was calling. So I hopped back on the train to Nice, passing Beaulieu and Villefranche along the way. I stopped for a pain au chocolat, checked out of my hotel, and wandered through the city back to the station. Nice is one of my favourite cities, and it's lovely out of season. The next leg of my journey was from Nice to Toulon on a quiet Corail train. It was a sunny day, and the Mediterranean was gleaming in the winter light. I was retracing part of the previous day's journey, but I wasn't sad about that at all. The countryside is stunning, and the train was comfortable. So why Toulon? Simply, I'm a bit of a rugby fan, and southern France holds few towns more crazy about it than the home of the French Navy on the Med. Flares, flags, Provençal songs, and the infamous Pilou Pilou chant make Stade Mayol one of the most thrilling places I've watched rugby. And what a setting, sandwiched between hills and harbour. After a few beers, I almost got on the ferry to Corsica at the port next door, but decided that was probably best left for another trip. I'd felt sure that my luck with the French rail operator SNCF could only last so long. I woke up to an email announcing that my connecting train from Marseille to Béziers would not be calling at Marseille, and suggesting that I might want to board it at Montpellier, a mere 100 miles further west. Fortunately, as I had an Interrail Pass, I was able to book a train from Marseille up to Avignon, and then another train back down from Avignon to Béziers. This sadly did mean that I would lose the time I'd planned to spend in Béziers, but hey, another day I suppose. There are worse journeys in any case. I left my last train in Béziers and waited in the lovely park for my bus to the tiny airport. Sadly, I didn't have time on this trip to travel back by train, so I flew back up to Luton on a surprisingly pleasant Ryanair flight on what was a beautiful evening. Bring snacks if you need. The airport doesn't really have any catering facilities. Southern France looked wonderful as we climbed out parallel to the Med. It was a fantastic trip, and I'm sure I'll be back soon.